Don't waste your time learning how to crochet. I mean, it literally took me 4 hours to create what I thought would be my first granny square into a granny circle. See, this is not my first attempt learning how to make this. Actually, I've been doing crochet for a while, probably approximately 3 days, and all my items turned out to be curves rather than squares or rectangles. That's because I'm on a journey on learning this new hobby, part of my series where I show you guys the true cost of learning a hobby, but not just the expense of the material, but also the time it takes to learn the hobby, and also see other things in the hobby community, such as looking at different communities. If you guys don't know, I have a website called RDU is Fun, and this is the first time I'm using it in this series because I wanted to look up different communities that knew how to crochet or knit, and I actually ended up in a unique place, which is the library.
I
So where
consider
to
the
go?
library a pretty unique place because we oftentimes think of the library as an area where we sit down and read books, use the computer, and maybe have access to research articles. But over the years, I realized that libraries have been expanding their options. Other than just having a book club that meets every week, they also have different community events, activities that people can do, as well as different ways that people can interact within the community. And one of those is the library loopers. I found this as I was scrolling through the library website. I noticed that this organization meets once a month and talk about different craft projects, even ones that are outside of crocheting. And I thought it would be pretty interesting because I really wanted to see if I can learn from other peers or other people around me of how to improve my crochet skills outside of just YouTube. So I thought it would be interesting to join and see. So this organization met around 6 to 8 p.m. and I decided to just bring in a lump of my yarn, that's my black yarn, and also my crochet hook, and just get started on just doing the basic stitches to see if doing the basic stitches and maybe being in a much more organized area could help me just create a better lines or edges. And this was actually quite interesting because I initially thought we would meet in this room and maybe work on a similar project, or maybe there will be someone who will instruct us, but it was actually just much more casual. People brought in their own personal projects and people were just working on different things that interest them. And even though it wasn't very much like a private or like tutorial based type of meeting, I still found it helpful because it was just interesting to see how people are able to improve their skills, but also how people are just learning how to use their skills to make things that they enjoy for other people or even themselves. So when it came to me personally, when I was crocheting in more of a linear fashion, and I thought it was much more easier to crochet in a line when I was actually sitting still and making it much more straighter. So instead of letting it loose like I did in my last previous videos, I thought that maybe holding it straighter would help as I tried to make a straighter line and create a cleaner edge. My project still ended up not looking the best as far as being super linear and straight, but I think it was definitely a big improvement from what I had previously. Another great thing about going to the library is that this organization was free, so I didn't have to pay anything when it came to going to the group and meeting up and learning different skills. And as far as commute, it depends on which library you are closest to. Even if you're not close to where you are, as far as the library that you want to go to, library loopers or something similar to that, I still advise on going because even some libraries are grouped into counties or maybe even a state. Even if you live in a place that's a little bit more smaller or more rural, you may still have access to go to that library and try that group or organization, so that way you can still learn the skill but don't necessarily have to be in that exact zip code. Now, you do have to consider driving and transportation because that could add on to your cost. But if you look to see how that group meets frequently, so if they meet once versus twice a week or once a month, it may not cost too much when it comes to transportation. And then after that, another thing to consider is other resources because yes, the library had that library loopers, but the library also had books. Now, one thing that I found interesting was considering different templates and patterns that could help me when it came to my ability to make much more straighter lines and edges. So I did went to the library and looked at some crochet books. Now, a lot of crochet books were leaning more towards plush toys and quilts, which is not necessarily something that I really wanted to practice on. I'm still in my beginner stage, but I thought that was definitely helpful for people who want to have another medium in learning how to crochet. And of course, it's a book that you can check out for free. That is also no additional cost. And then if groups and meetups involving books are not really your thing, that's okay because the library also offers other activities and events that you can go to. And I enjoyed this so much, the library loopers, I decided to put this onto my website Arduous, but underneath the Apex, North Carolina region because that's where the library is located. Now, if you're not really into crochet, I also offer other activities and events that you can go to, like dance classes or pottery classes. And all of this is free to use. All you have to do is go to the website and click on the link, and there it will ask you to sign up or pay if that is an activity that requires payment. And the great thing is that in my website, you can sort things out by pricing. So if you want to go to the library loopers, it's a free event, so that way you don't have to pay. But if it's activity like pottery, you can also pay for that onto the website of where the person who has the activity is holding. And then another thing is you can also sort things by suburb. So you could go to Durham, North Carolina, or you could go to Mooresville, North Carolina, and find activities there as well. Another thing is that if you want to save any of these activities, you could go to my website and just put in your information if you want to hold any of these activities for your own personal reference or if you want to send them over to other people. And when it came back to the library loopers and learning how to crochet in my journey, I wanted to stack this up to the comparison when it comes to learning the true cost of hobbies. Now, equipment cost. Equipment cost, I would say, is free because this is materials that I already had. But if you haven't watched my first video, I showed you the cost of what it took when it comes to buying materials to learn how to crochet. And then when it comes to lesson costs, I didn't actually learn anything from individual people. These were things like when I came there, I was just learning and just stitching on my own. So I would say I wasn't really learning things, so there wouldn't be any lesson cost either. But if there was a time if I met up with someone in the group and they taught me how to do something, then I would also put this onto the timing of what I learned. Now, I did spend some time there stitching and looping, and so that would be 1 hour and 9 minutes. Since I was still in the practice phases, I wasn't really finishing up a project, so that's why I count this time a little bit shorter. But if you do go to a meetup like the Library Loopers or something similar to it, I would also count that time underneath the lesson cost as well if you're trying to finish up a project or to learn something from a specific person. And then when it comes to accessibility, the great thing with crochet is that you don't necessarily have to go to meetups, clubs, or groups to learn this skill. So I would say it's really easy to access. And then when it comes to the casual group meetups and the community, since this is in the library and this is more of a public area where you can just have access to when there is a meetup like every month, I would say that this is a good casual group to go to. They meet up quite frequently, and even though it's not every week, it's still regular enough that you can still have a community to practice or learn some skills. And then when it comes to professional organizations or groups, I haven't seen any crochet groups as of yet that are in the North Carolina region, but that's something that hopefully I could get into the next